Welcome to Rockhampton with Nyree the podcast that celebrates the people, places, and stories that make Rocky and the wider central Queensland community extraordinary. I firmly believe we're sitting on a golden goose in this region, and I love meeting the people who are doing the quiet work behind the scenes to keep the community thriving. They run our sports clubs, they organise our charities, they support the people who are lost in the system, and they volunteer their time so generously. And I feel like the luckiest person in the world when someone shares their story with me privately. And now I'm privileged to bring their stories and achievements to you, the listeners of Rockhampton with Nyree Johnson. Sometimes they wonder why they were asked, thinking that what they're doing and what they've done is not that big of a deal. And I can hand on heart tell you that it absolutely is. Other times, my guests are ecstatic to be asked and they look forward to sharing a piece of their Rocky and Central Queensland story. Thank you for listening in. I truly appreciate you being here. Today's guest is Diane Armstrong. Now, Diane is an exceptionally talented photographer. That is not the only thing that she is, but it is the thing that inspires me so much because Diane's ability to capture landscape photography and edit it to bring it to life so that it looks exactly the way that she saw it at the time blows me away, your skill and talent, Diane. I'm so excited to have you on the podcast today because your story is quite incredible. It's very inspiring, and where you're going is definitely not a slow path. So I'm really looking forward to unpacking that with you today and sharing a little bit about who Diane is with the listeners of Rockhampton with Nyree Johnson and learning a little bit more about what inspires you and where you've come from.
Thanks, Nori. It's great to be here with you today, and I'm excited where I'm going to, and I just love that other people are inspired by my journey as well.
And I am like one of your number one fans as well with your photography. And for anyone watching this podcast on YouTube, my background is one of Diane's photos. And then, of course, Diane's background. We can see a bit of a snippet of one of your photos there as well, Diane. So just incredible work. You blow me away every time I look at your work on Facebook, even on your private Facebook page, you know, the places that you go, the adventures you're on, the photography trips. Really keen to unpack all of that in this podcast. But before we really get stuck into it, though, I'd like to know if you could be an expert at anything at all in the world, what would it be and why?
Great question. It took me a little while to think about this. For me, it would have to be around the intricacies of the weather. Why does weather affect the way we feel? I mean, you hear teachers say all the time, if it's windy, the kids are going to be a little bit wild.
Mm-hmm.
And for me as a photographer, the connection we have, the emotional connection we have with a scene, a sunrise, just looking at the clouds, something in a photo that it'll evoke something within us, and it's all to do with the weather. Whether it's touch, sight, it's all about our emotions, our senses. It's a photo, a scene is usually something. There's something about the weather in that scene that sparks something.
Yeah, wow. That is interesting. And I guess, you know, I know a lot of people also say, oh, they've got aches and pains in particular joints, for example. Oh, it must be about to rain. And I'm like, how does that work? Like, what's happening there?
That's a mature age thing, I think.
It's an experienced at life thing. Yes. No, that's a fun one. Well done. I like it, and it definitely complements your work, of course. So you're a photographer, and in my opinion, a well-known photographer, extremely talented in town. And also, I mean, across Australia, you've had shows and exhibitions in different parts of Australia outside of Rockhampton as well. And I'm really curious to know, I've also, you know, been lucky enough to hear you share your story in different forums and at speaking events, for example. But I'm really curious to have you share on the podcast today, you know, what are those key moments and people and experiences that you've had in your life that have essentially shaped who you are today?
It gives me goosebumps to talk about this. It's still like, take a deep breath. The ending of my fairy tale marriage, like, you get married, you think it's going to be a fairy tale ending. The ending of that was definitely my turning point. And now it's my faith. I've learned to have faith, to know that all things are possible over the last few years. And that faith's just deepened over recent years, of course. I think it was the very respected photographer Ken Duncan that's inspired me mostly.
Mm.
And then his lady who was his assistant, Danny Watson. She's no longer his assistant, but she's practically mine, I'd say. She
Yeah.
teaches me, she inspires me. She's become more than a mentor. We talk often, very often, and talk about everything. With her, though, it's always a suggestion of something more I can improve on, something I can do differently, a new way of doing things, thinking outside the box. You've got to keep growing as a person, and especially in my photography, you've got to keep growing to change your style, to learn what your style is. And that took a long time for me
Mm.
to understand people kept saying, well, what's your style? What do you want to concentrate on? And that's always evolving, always.
Mm.
Mm.
Mm. And have you always been quite keen on taking photographs? Or is that something you've really only just discovered in, since the ending of your marriage?
I've always been keen on photography. There was a dark room in the back of our house on the little farm I grew up in. My great-grandfather on my father's side and my
Mm.
father had cameras. Not that I saw them using them very often, but there was a dark room out the back. It was always mysterious. What's in here? We weren't allowed to go in there because of the chemicals. Um,
Mm.
Always loved it. I never had time. Whilst we did photography trips during our marriage, and I started particularly from 2013 onwards doing workshops, traveling
Mhm.
with Ken Duncan and learning from him constantly. Whilst I did that, I never had time to do anything with the photos. And
Mm.
Ken's favourite saying to photographers is, a photo is not a photo until it's printed. You've got to do something.
Mm.
And that's what he kept saying to me. So it's only really the last 4 years, I guess, that I've concentrated on that. It gave me a reason to live, basically.
Mm. Mhm.
Was At first it was just getting outdoors, room to breathe, and then something evolved, something happened that just I was just comfortable. It was a place of comfort for me and
Mm.
nature. Nature is there. It's just ever changing. It doesn't beg to be saved. It's just there, and everyone sees it differently.
Mm. Yes. And I really love nature and scenery and landscapes. And every time I take a photo, I just can't do what I'm looking at justice. And of course, I know that comes down to editing, but also it comes down to exceptionally gifted photographers who really know the angles and the lighting and the settings. And it's so much more complex than just hitting snap.
Yeah, it's not all about the editing. I'd prefer to take a beautiful photo to start with and not have to do anything with it because
Mm.
you spend hours just buried in your computer.
Mm.
It's about seeing things differently. It's about getting
Yeah.
there, slowing right down, not rushing, and just looking around. It might be just noticing the bark on the tree or the light
Mm.
behind the tree, or it's all about the light, and that's what's really inspired me lately. The last
Mm.
I've been developing this inner process, I suppose. It's about recognizing that life and in photography, there's cracks. There's things that
Mm.
you don't expect. There's things that happen that come out of nowhere, but it's about that decision to let the light in. So photography is about letting the light in. It's about
Mm.
recognizing and looking for different things that people don't ordinarily see. Everyone's busy. It's all a rush, but it's just slow down. Slow.
Mm. Mm. No, I love it. So, your current journey, you are all in on photography, particularly in the last 4 years. You've got shows and exhibitions all over Australia. You're on photography mastery type trips. I'm just calling them that. You've not called them that. You mentioned your marriage ended and then this is your reason to live essentially. But what was that turning point that led you to go all in on photography? Was there a big bang moment where you went, you know what, this fills me with joy, for example, or putting yourself out there in an exhibition is not an easy thing to do. You are literally putting your art on display for people to critique and judge. And as someone who's come out of, not myself, of course, not myself, but as you who's come out of a long-term relationship and you're finding your feet in the new way that you see the world and you're in the world, that would have taken a heck of a lot of courage and guts to put yourself out there. What has that looked like for you? Was there that key moment where you went, this is what I'm doing?
I don't remember an exact key moment.
Mm.
But seeing someone else inspired by your work certainly increases your enthusiasm. Like when I first started out, I was basically wasted 2 years. I spent 2 years
Mhm.
thinking, what am I going to do now? Poor me. And there were people that stepped in my life, people I started to get to know. I mean, it was COVID, so that was just
Mm.
crazy moving to Rocky during COVID.
Mm.
But there was volunteering opportunities. I just made a decision to do things that I got to meet people, I got to see what others were doing, and in that way there was people around me, good friends, there was people that stepped in that believed in me before I believed in myself.
Mm.
And you've got to, like, asking for help, trying to find help when things aren't going well. I see that, or I used to see it, as a weakness.
Mm.
And it's not. It's just you've got to make that decision to soak up whatever you can soak up, to start believing in yourself, to believe other people's view of you and appreciate that they're stepping beside you all the way
Mm.
to give you that boost, I guess. It's
Mm.
you've got to surround yourself with people that believe in you.
Yeah, no, absolutely. You know, moving to Rocky in COVID, I've never actually asked you where you were before Rocky, but I'm curious to ask that. But also, what has being in Rocky delivered for you? Like, how has this region enabled you to pursue your dreams?
Okay, so I lived in just only 3 hours away, Central Queensland,
Mm.
on a grain farm. So I've always been in the region. I've always loved it. My boys, 4 boys, went to Rockhampton Grammar School. So we've
Mhm.
been backwards and forwards to Rocky. I've always loved the community. But when I moved here, it was different. It was the spirit of the people, that I'm involved with Cap Rescue, so it was getting involved in volunteering. It was
Mm.
the friendly faces of the locals, and now more than anything, it's when I go to networking events and community events, it's everyone's so proud of this region, and I
Mm.
think it's rubbed off on me a little. Although I've always been for 40 years a local, I guess, in the region,
Mm.
but there's so much variation in our landscapes here, the industry. That's what grabs me about Rockhampton and the region. There's always something different to look at. There's always something different going on. There's vibrancy. There's excitement from everyone you talk to. Practically,
Mm.
it's really good at the moment.
Yeah, I feel that as well. And having gone away, like growing up here, then moving away for a little bit, about 8 years, and then I came back, you really have that new sense of appreciation because it's great that you say, everyone realizes what we're sitting on here, unless you ask the teenagers. Don't ask them because they all want to move away. But I did the same thing. They'll come back.
Yeah, that's a phase, I guess, in life. You
Yeah.
go out and explore new things, but it's just coming. Like every time I go away, I'm away often.
Mm.
When I come back, I can just relax in the town. I can walk down by the river. I can go out to the coast. I can go hiking in Byfield. There's just so much that you can do.
Mm.
Yeah, it just keeps me here.
Mm. Yeah. And you've got some really big things coming up in the next couple of months as well. We're in May now, and I don't even know how you're living life in May and June with what you've got going on. But tell the listeners a little bit about what's coming up for you.
Yeah, it's a little bit crazy at the moment. I'm surviving on 4 to 5 hours sleep a night, but every day
Mhm.
I get up and yay, it's another day. Let's see what we can get done today. I would never have imagined being in this situation. Next week, I'm heading off to Brisbane to the Affordable Art Fair. Over 50 galleries exhibiting, each with at least 3 artists. So it's at the
Mhm.
showgrounds in Brisbane. And my art will be on display for 4 days there. And I get to talk about my art to people. I get to see what interests them. So that's amazing. Last year I did Melbourne and Sydney, Affordable Art Fair,
Mhm.
and finishing it off this year with Brisbane. It's a lot of work but just so motivational, talking to people and seeing the light in their eyes when they look at my art and find
Mm.
what connection they have.
Mm.
Then we got Beam Awards at the end of the month in Melbourne, which
Mhm.
is I'm
Mhm.
pretty excited about. I've been involved for 3 years with that process and
Mhm.
encouraging other young people in business. I sponsor the emerging business category and have done for 3 years, and just being able to inspire other young people just starting out in business and get to network with other people in business that are motivated. It's just, yeah, that's just amazing, but a lot of work. And then I go straight
Mm.
from Melbourne to Broome. I'm doing an aerial photography trip in Broome out of
Mhm.
helicopters, hanging out of helicopters, which is my passion, doing abstracts and yeah, come home from Broome and I've got 4 days at home before heading to an exhibition in Sydney. So there's a lot happening, and straight from Sydney, I go to New Zealand for a huge workshop, which is on a sheep station, which I've been to before, but it's the learning, it's the connection with other photographers, seeing something different
Mm.
they're doing, and improving my own skills, and that's what I love to do,
Mm. Mm.
and that involves helicopters as well.
So we have a bit of a adrenaline thing happening here, just hanging out of helicopters, taking amazing photos.
I've got a passion, like it was a pilot. I had my helicopter's license, so I've had to let that
Mm.
go because I don't have access to helicopter, but I get my drones out as often as I can, usually
Mm.
2 or 3, 4 times a week, and just
Mm.
the feeling of seeing things from above. It's
Mm.
a bird's eye view, I guess you say, but it
Mm.
gives you that different perspective, and that's what life's all about, seeing things from a different perspective, changing the way you think about things, and
Mhm.
yeah, I'm pretty excited about that.
Mm. Mm. No, I love that. Drone photography is I've played a little bit around with it and I just love it because my favorite photo that I've taken, which is unedited, I flew my drone from the lookout at Five Rocks over to on top of the Five Rocks, which is about, I think, 2 kilometers away from the lookout. So it was really pushing the limit of the drone. And just taking that photo where it's like straight down on the rocks as the water's crashing against the rocks. It's just beautiful. I love it so much.
Yeah, the pers the perspective from the air is, um,
Mm.
it's something different, and it allows you to develop. You can get really arty and crazy with
Mm.
abstract aerials. Five Rocks is somewhere that I really want to get to, and that's still a challenge that I like being a single female after
Mm.
uh, 30, 35 years of marriage. I'm still developing my confidence in doing things on
Mm.
my own, and four-wheel driving is probably not one, even though I live on
Mhm.
a farm and
Mm.
go through creeks and things a lot. And yeah, it's
Yes.
something I've got to develop.
Yeah, Five Rocks is definitely a different type of four-wheel driving to
Yeah,
farm driving, but I will happily take you. I love Five Rocks.
you're right.
I will happily take you. Yes.
Yeah, I'd love to go up
Yes.
there, and capture. Like I've been to Byfield and Stony Creek, and
Mm.
it's just incredible
Mm.
around there. I took a young photographer with me a couple of days ago to
Mm.
out at Yeppoon. She wanted to catch up with me after a speech I did for International Women's Day. So
Mm.
it's amazing how you get connections like this 18-year-old who reminds me very much of myself at that age,
Mm.
doing nursing, and I did nursing, and um, but she was talking about all these different spots at Stony Creek. I was like, right,
Yes.
I'm in. Let me know when you're going.
Yes.
Follow along.
Yeah. Well, you'll have to give me your availability and we'll book in a date and we'll go to Five Rocks.
Sounds good. Sounds really good.
Yeah. Um, so we've talked a little bit about your, the marriage breakup. I definitely don't want to focus on that for you because you're so much more than that. But when you think about everything that you've experienced in life, is there like something that really helped you to pivot in your approach or perspective of the world? So whether it be like a significant challenge that you've overcome or whether it's been a really proud moment or a really meaningful moment that's really influenced or, shaped your perspective?
When I was growing up, I had grandparents on my mother's side, maternal grandparents, and I guess they were always happy to see me. That it was never any too much trouble to do anything for you. You were welcome with open arms. You were treated as though you were special, and they were always positive to me. On the outside,
Mm.
always positive. They had an attitude of nothing's too much trouble, life's good, and I knew there was things going on in the background with them,
Mm.
but it wasn't focused on. I guess that's what draws me back to that's where my roots started, I guess, of seeing things positively. There was a lot of years I didn't.
Mm.
Throughout the crap, it was just you just couldn't see above. It was like treading
Mm.
all the time. Now it's that perspective of thinking positively, I guess. When I was asked to do a speech at International Women's Day, at first I thought, oh, I can't do this. I'm a
Mm.
speaker. But that's probably got to be one of the moments, and it's only a recent moment, so I'm sure there's more to come.
Mm,
That was one of the moments where I really, really enjoyed telling a little bit of my story,
mm,
and the result of these young girls coming up to me afterwards and inspiring other people. It's really sparked a passion in me that I've got something to give. I've got something
mm,
to others that will help them in their journey. And on the back of that, I did a podcast with a lady in America. I've signed a publishing deal to write a book, to write my story, which I didn't think I was ever going to do. I've kept journals over the years,
wow.
years and years and years of journals scattered all over the house.
Mm,
Just a mess of my life, really. And now it's going to be consolidated into an inspirational book, and I'm really
mhm.
excited about that.
I'm really excited for you as well. And as someone who had the privilege of listening to your speech at that International Women's Day event, you had me hooked from the minute you started speaking until the minute you finished. And I was like, oh my goodness, someone that I've known for years, I've just learnt a million times more information about them. Yes.
If I haven't had enough sleep or I'm struggling with something, not that I struggle very often anymore, but I actually put the recording of
Mm,
the speech, all my podcasts, and I put them on, and it motivates me. So
yes.
I'm excited about where things are going. I
Mm,
I've learnt through Leonard Cohen's song, and seems to have become my catchphrase. There's a
mm,
crack in everything. That's how the light
mhm,
gets in. And
mm,
you've got to have these cracks in your life. You've got to welcome these cracks, even though they're tough,
yes.
because you know the light is going to get through that crack. The photo behind me of Carnarvon Gorge,
Mm,
I, I was there hiking. It was just the right time of day. I sat down to have something for lunch, and all of a sudden, these beams of light are there.
mm,
The cracks have got to get in.
mm.
The light, sorry, gets in through those cracks in your life.
Yes, I love that mantra. Absolutely fantastic.
There's another part of that song, sorry,
Mm.
that
No, go.
it says, "Ring the bells that still can ring." So it doesn't matter
Mhm,
how low you think you are or what's going on in your life, you've still got something to ring. You've still got there's a
mhm.
bell there somewhere that you can ring. And if you've heard church bells, quite often they'll just get louder and louder and louder. And
Yes.
ringing your bells, it's just things are gonna improve.
And how lucky for you as well to have such amazing grandparents, to have that positive outlook on life, regardless of what's happening, that was buried deep down inside. And it was, bringing itself to the surface when you were going through the times that weren't so great for you. And, just that influence that you had as a younger person, that nothing was a problem, everything was okay, everything will be okay, and just to have that guiding light within you as well. That's such a lucky thing to have.
Yeah, it is, and it's important to remember those roots sometimes. Like,
Mm,
life's been tough. I'm not gonna say,
mm,
it's been great, and I wouldn't change it for anything, but
mhm,
to remember those roots and to remember where you came from
mm,
underneath everything else, underneath the blankets of whatever else was there, it's
mm,
it gives meaning and perspective
mm.
to your life.
Absolutely. So you jump up every morning. Well, probably not every morning, but most mornings, 99.99% of mornings, ready for the day, ready to learn, ready to get stuck into it, ready to be creative and, bring your best self to the world. What is it, behind that drive that pushes you to do that?
Life is short, and it
Mm,
took me a long time, like, my mother-in-law used to say this to me, "Life is short," and it took me such a long time to recognise that we're only here for a limited time.
mm,
Had a saying printed out, laminated for years and years and years before I even left the marriage. It was, and I looked at it the other day, and I think now I really know what that means. It's, every day you get up, you've got a choice of how you're gonna look at the day. You've got a choice to do what you want to do and to be the person you wanna be. And
mm,
and it takes a long time to get used to that idea and really make the most of it. It's
mm,
getting out of bed when you've had 4 hours sleep, the alarm goes off. I have my music for my alarms is inspired by my granddaughter,
mm,
and it's out of the movie Spirit. So it's, here I am, and I'm here ready to start the day. Doesn't matter what's going on, I'm still here, and
mm.
you can't get rid of me.
I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is so, so lovely. So, if you could give one piece of advice to the next generation coming along after us, what would it be?
I guess it's don't ever be afraid to try something new.
Mm,
Put yourself out there. When I moved to Rocky, it was, what am I gonna do? It was COVID, but I had a friend that came down and she signed me up at the gym. She got me involved in things, and it's putting yourself out there. It's trying something new, even though you don't think you can do it, even though you don't know where it
mm,
will lead. It's just
mm,
never be afraid to try something new and
mm.
and have belief in yourself.
Absolutely, I love that. And I do strongly encourage anyone who's listening who loves landscape and scenery photography like I do to jump on and follow your social media or your website. And of course, your prints are available for sale. So I'm super lucky to have some of them. I've filled up one of my websites with them because I just love them so much. But yeah, you're such an amazingly talented woman, very inspirational the way that you carry yourself. And it's been an absolute privilege having you on this podcast.
Thank you. Yeah, it's been lovely to talk with you. One thing I do need to say is there's been opportunities that have come along in my life where I could have easily said, no, I'm not ready for that. But you've really got to take up those opportunities, make the most of every opportunity you get, and
Mm,
it's going to lead.
yep. Say yes and figure it out later.
Yeah.
No, that is fantastic advice. Thank you so much. And thank you so much for giving up your time to be on this podcast with me. I really do appreciate it.
Loved it. Thank you.
Thanks for tuning into this week's episode of Rockhampton with Nyree Johnson, proudly brought to you by Marketing Unagency Co., the marketing team who do things very differently and who are determined to make the world of marketing less chaotic and far clearer for small businesses and community groups.